Welcome to Gen Z Hoops, the Gen Z basketball, coaching, and sports business show.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Gen Z Hoops podcast. Today, I'm joined by Clinician coach for Transforming Basketball and Summer Camp coach at IMG, Coach William Twigg. Coach Twigg, how you doing today, sir?
Hey, Ashton, great. Thank you for having me. Really excited to be on.
Oh, no, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity with your really rigorous schedule and all. I really appreciate it. So I like to jump into our little conversation here. Let's take it all the way back to the beginning. You've coached at so many different levels, from U14 youth to even professional women's and men's programs. At what point in your life did you realize that you wanted to make basketball a career?
Yeah, so I started coaching from a really young age at 11 years old, and I used to teach 7 and 8 year olds. And the club that I was at actually just asked, "Can you help out? And like, do you want to help coaching and teach these little kids?" I was like, "For sure." And then after I got a feel for that, a really enjoyment, just seeing the kids have fun, that really brought just a sense of enjoyment to the game for me, and in a different aspect. Obviously, I was playing as well, and from that moment, that was it. I was sold on it, and that was it. I decided at that point that I wanted a career through basketball, and I was going to find different ways and try and figure that out. And
So growing up in the UK and being such a young coach, what was that environment kind of like for a young aspiring coach?
Sure. I mean, I think you only know what you know at the time, right? So being so young, obviously, I was surrounded by this club where they had a big pathway from under 8s all the way through to men and women's team. And that was kind of life in coaching for a good 10 plus years there. But that really gave me like the foundation of how I started to learn different ways to teach and be in leadership and communication. But from then I started to understand what UK basketball is like and different outreaches. And that was it. As soon as I started networking a bit more and started talking to the governing body, Basketball England, then that really gave me more of a pathway to get really where I am here now.
So like when I was growing up, from a playing standpoint, my biggest inspiration was LeBron James. Like I wanted to do everything like LeBron. For a coaching standpoint, was there ever a coach that you really looked up to at a young age and you would always watch their games or anything like that?
Sure, not necessarily. No, I mean I was still playing, and I was big on AI at the time, and Kobe, like all the Shaq, like had small little skinny white boy wearing a big Shaquille O'Neal 32 Miami Heat jersey at the time. Like they were still like my role models and inspiration, and seeing all that. But suddenly, like when I took it a bit more seriously and started understanding the game, then I'd start to follow a bit more. Obviously, Phil Jackson was the one. Obviously, I watched a lot of Lakers and Kobe, and then I started reading his books, etc., and getting a really feel for Phil. and yeah, so really, I'd say Phil. And then the other one, because I was a big Magic fan, Stan Van Gundy at the time when the Magic went to the playoffs with that team, like Jimmy Nelson, Dwight, Rasheed Lewis, Mike Petras, like really focused on Stan Van Gundy then as well, like really watching and learning from there. But right now, what I would say is that I've learned so much more over the past 3 years. It's probably been my biggest growing time as a coach. And I've learned so much more from coaches in Europe and watching the EuroLeague and the Euro Cup, and having the experience of Lions and other people I've worked along with. So, yeah.
So your coaching style, from my research actually, is grounded in the ecological dynamic model and the constraint-led approach. So for the listeners that are unfamiliar with these terms, can you explain a little bit what they mean in practice and how basically like when you go out there on the floor for game day, what do they mean?
Sure. So what the CLA is, so the constraint-led approach, what we're trying to do is basically constrain small-sided games to basically create an environment where the skills will emerge through players from their creativity and the environment with the intent of what's happening. So a long story short, to try and simple up, a great quick version of like a small-sided game that I imagine a lot of coaches have done is through Cutthroat. So if you take the game Cutthroat, at one of the camps we work at Snow Valley, they would have several rules, and one of them would be square up to the basket. That's a constraint. Every time they catch the ball, they have to square up. If they don't do that, then cutthroat, they're off. That's it.
Right.
Okay, so that would be like a quick version of that, of what a constraint could look like or be. If we were to do a finishing drill, within the finishing drills, we would look at not have a player finish without any defense over them. We might add a body there, but constrain the defender, say they can't actually move their feet. They would stay still, but they could move their arms in different ways and try and deflect and get stops. This would be another constraint to the small-sided game. What we could do as well, if say it was mic hand, for example, we could add that defender in to make it 1v1, and they're doing mic hand, but then actually you just constrain the shooter as well at the same time and say, well, you're not going to score off the backboard. You can only score the ball off the rim. Mm-hmm. So they're not allowed to hit the backboard. If they do, then no basket, or you can do it the opposite way around. Then suddenly what we start to do is build a different skill set of the player actually using their body in different ways and how they're thinking and decision-making at the same time to accomplish their goal. So that's kind of a very small example of how we can really tailor the needs of the player and make sure it's intentional on what they're doing for them to improve and get better. So a long time ago, you would see me with all the cones, no defenders, all this crazy equipment. And now, actually, it's very more intentional in the sense of how they're playing and building their skill and their reps.
What that made me think of, we actually do this drill at school, like during our practice week. It's called like 60 seconds of perfect defense. What I would have to say it's one of my least favorite drills because it's like so much pressure. So it's like, let's say like coach is like looking at like every single thing we do. Ashton, you didn't hit on a box out, even though we got the rebound. They restart the clock. The clock starts again, 60 seconds again, like full minute. You have to perfectly possession after possession, like drain the clock down until it hits 0, and then you win the drill. Ashton didn't jump to the ball. Then you restart the drill again. Ashton didn't.
Sure. So yeah,
so it's right. Like that.
They're small different constraints, and I think the biggest thing is what we try and do as coaches, and what we need to do is make sure it's as game-like as possible. Versus, for example, like I've seen in the past, and I'm guilty of doing it. For example, I'll give you one like a 3-man weave. Now, when does a 3-man weave ever happen in a game? Does it?
No, not really, honestly.
No, right? So then it's like, is there the intent of that drill? Well, okay, coaches might say, it's about getting space, moving quick, etc. And what I'm really big on right now, and continuing my career, and I've been blessed to be working with very like-minded coaches, is making sure the intent of the actual small-sided game or the drill is there. So if that makes sense a little bit. I don't know if
that makes total sense, actually. I feel like the 3-man weave honestly is like a good like warm up, like nothing like crazy.
Right.
About, like competing, like
sure,
get connectivity down. You just like pass the ball, you get up and down. It's like a warm up, first drill of the day. But I feel like to run a fast break, I would say from like my experience playing, like one of those like 3-on-2, 2-on-1 drills, like some of those like advantage type drills are much better, especially like we do this one drill. It's called Kobe 1v1. You have to pick up from the inbounds.
Sure.
You can't cross like the middle of the floor. So it's kind of like simulates the game, you know what I mean? Because you're not going to be able to dribble.
Yeah, so that's a really good. Yeah, and then is the coach then like constraining the space within that 1v1 and trying to get there? Yeah. So there you go. There's an intent there of what you're actually working on and the actual skill development of them progressing forward. So yeah, that's a great one right there.
So you talked about focusing on transforming U14 basketball. What did transformation look like to you, and what kind of change did you want to bring to that level of basketball?
Sure. So this kind of ties in with what we did at London Lions. So we had within our team, our coaching staff, we had a very different model to what is the regular in the UK. We had 4 coaching staff, and they would touch base with all different age groups from under 12 all the way through to under 18. And we were very fortunate. We had Alex Sarama involved, who is the director of player development for the Cleveland Cavaliers. currently, and also the owner of Transforming Basketball, and he worked with us for the season, which was great. And what we did basically is implement our own principles of play to each team, and we would basically have. Well, initially, we would all have the same principles of play. This big principles of play document, a two-sided sheet, one for offense, one for defense, and it would be clear understanding of how the club philosophy of how we're going to play the game and how we're going to implement it. And what we tailored, we made sure is that there were some very different there's different framework on there. So green, yellow, and red. Right. Green is just strictly in transition. Yellow is gets and triggers, and red is more ATOs and sets based. And it's obviously like the phases of offense. So all of our age groups were following this principles of play document. And what we would then do is, well, the under 12s aren't going to be in a position where they can run sets yet. And there's a big learning curve there of what we're going to teach them. So we were teaching that green phase and transition and what advantages look like. And then we would build that up for under 14. So the beauty of it was we had all these coaching staff working on this principles of play document with all the teams, and we would be able to get together and we could decide and collaborate where each team is at. So with me, I had the under 14 boys for the season. And it was great. It was awesome to see the progression they made each month, and also have other coaches with the same language we would use as well. We'd have like a language document, so all the players would pick up the same language. So if I'll give you a quick example. We would use anything on ball screens. We wouldn't actually call it screen. We'd say picks, and anything off ball would be a screen. So just clear terminology there, because I think as a staff, it's very easy to say, we could talk about screening away or picks on ball or hedging the pick, etc. But if we don't all have the same... Oh, Ashton, I'm sorry. 1 second.
Oh, no, you're good.
Sorry, I just had a cool pop-up. Sorry. If we all had different language and how we were teaching, then there would be a mass confusion within the team. So this really helped their development very quickly. So that was a really big impact of how they got better throughout, just basic, simple in terms of language and this principles of play document. Something else was on the document to help with spacing, and I would recommend this with all age groups, is floor is lava. So we would teach anything inside the 3-point line is lava. And what that would mean is if they enter the 3-point line, they would have to relocate and find a space outside the 3-point line. And what this actually would do is have the intent of the players. They will not then suddenly run to the ball, run randomly in a circle at that younger age group inside the 3-point line. And it starts to teach them about spacing and how we space the game in basketball. We also took away pass and cut. So it's very, in the UK especially, it's very traditional to run a 5-out motion, pass and cut. Well, then the question is, what is the intent of the players actually trying to score off that pass or cut? Are they then becoming robots with a sense of motion that they're just running the action of pass, cut, and then they just play off that? Well, we were trying to eliminate that completely, which we did. And it was, if you're cutting, there's going to be an intent there. So we introduced something like a ghost cut. So we would teach the players actually, when their defender is, if for example, if Ashton, you're in the corner of the court, and your player's over helping and he hasn't got an eye on you on the help line, and you would then look to ghost cut maybe off a 45 wing drive, and in that way we would create an advantage off that.
Yep.
And what we would slowly start to do is build this up till we get to yellow, which is the gets and triggers, and we would teach different actions that players would then learn from that, and we would then base that on coverages and coverage solutions. So depending on what the coverage of defense would be in, or what they were doing, it might be a switch, might be an exchange, etc. It might be a hedge, might be a drop, might be a ice. We would be intentional, and we would make sure that the coverage solution would counter the coverage. So then that way, it's like a cheat sheet for them. They're now thinking about the game even more. Well, I've seen I see my players just switch on defense. Now, has my teammate got a mismatch advantage, number one? Could that be an option there? Okay, yes, there is, but I can't feed him the ball. Maybe we then look to like relay the ball from a different angle. So then we make a blast cut from the opposite 45, move the ball, and we ping it in and relay it in. And what this really did is just start to build the player's mindset of how they want to play. So at that age, and then progress moving on.
So as a coach, this kind of piqued my curiosity right here. I know a lot of coaches, when they're teaching new lingos and new terminologies and new sets to younger players, sometimes players can seem to get a little bit like, robotic in a sort of way. Like they don't want to mess up a drill. They don't want to mess up an offense or a set or anything like that. How would you get like players out of that kind of robotic mindset?
Sure. So within this small-sided game, like mindset of using a constraint-led approach, what it is, it's about putting them in situations that's real life to the game, and then actually giving them the ownership of creativity, and then trying to find a solution. So it's not necessarily, Jimmy, you've got to use your right hand every time and be able to dribble or pass every time right hand. Well, that might not happen necessarily in a game. I'll give you another example. For example, repetition without repetition. So we would encourage, if we were doing any shooting small-sided game or drill, we would look to make sure that they would never shoot the same shot twice.
Yeah. So
if they were working on their on catch and shoot threes, they would never shoot a catch and shoot three 2 in a row. They would shoot 2 in a row, but they would shoot it in different positions. So they might shoot in the corner first, then they might go to the 45. Because in the game, how often do they shoot the same shot twice in a row? For example, like a catch and shoot. Right. So then is that by getting little Jimmy to shoot 5 in a row, is that intentional then to the game? Does that relate to the game? Well, no, it doesn't if he shoots 5 in a row in the same spot. So that's the idea. And then what hopefully it will allow the players to think and give that level of creativity rather than just necessarily the level of accountability and just come in and go, no, stop. Mm-hmm. It actually makes the players think, because I'm able as a coach to be comfortable enough to give them the freedom to make mistakes and then learn from their mistakes.
Yeah, of course. And especially when you're running plays in the game, like when I was in middle school, I had like a college coach coaching my AAU team. So we were out here like running like college type sets, like a secondary or like a lifter action on the whole right side of the floor right there. And there was like a little bit of like wrinkles in each play. So it's like, instead of setting that one, when the trail man gets the ball at the top of the key, instead of going down, setting that down screen for the guy in the corner, you can easily slip that like after the guy's like overplaying you so many times. So you start seeing like those little wrinkles in the play. It got to a point kind of, I don't mean to go off like of topic here, but it kind of relates. It got to a point where like the parents on like the other kids' teams were like recording, trying to like see what we were doing because of how like fluid our offense looked. So I can like connect to you on that note.
Yeah, and that's it, isn't it? Like, I think it's when what we really tried to do is make sure they weren't too focused on, because we didn't have sets. We ran gets and triggers, like pick and roll action, and different cuts, etc., and pitch and slip, and maybe a handoff at the older age group and screen away. But what we would try and do, and a great example, is the Pacers. The Pacers do it. They played with different triggers and gets. OKC do it as well. It's very similar to the NBA and how they're playing. We were teaching that and implementing that, and versus, because I bet you any money that when you were in that middle school team, you were more worried about running the set and getting it right rather than actually the main goal and the intention of actually scoring the ball.
Yeah, honestly, like when he first introduced it to us, that we were just trying to like run it through so we get that shot. But then once like the season progressed, then it's like, oh wait, I can just slip this. Oh wait, I can just like kind of just pop the ball screen and then swing it one more to the corner. Like, that guy's gonna get open three. So he kind of like figured out how to play off it. It was a good like chemistry building way if looking back at it. But I can totally see where you're coming from on that note.
Sure.
And talking about the Pacers, I can't tell you, going to your terminology, talking about ghosting screens, I can't tell you how many times I saw Pascal Siakam in the playoffs try to set Tyrese Halliburton a ball screen going middle, but then he ghosted to the wing and it was a wide open three like every single time.
Right. Exactly. And that was the advantage in the mismatch that they solved. The coverage, based on the coverage, that was the coverage solution. It's the same for like the Cavs, for example. Seeing Jarrett Allen, you'll see Jarrett Allen or even Evan Mobley. Very rarely they held on the screen on the pick and roll. What they would do, they would hot plate it. They would imagine their shoulders like a hot plate. Again, this is like the terminology we use, the Lions. They would like basically touch on the pick and they just slip straight away. And in that way, it created an advantage because obviously the defenders on the coverage, they might be switching or heading, etc., or whatever. They then found the coverage solution off the basically just a quick tap and go, because obviously the defenders expect them to hold on the pick and then roll out of it. When in fact, coverage and finding the coverage solution, and that's what you see a lot with the Pacers, and that's why the Pacers got where they got this year.
So sad Halliburton tore his Achilles in that game. So we got robbed, man. We got robbed.
For sure.
So you coached at Snow Valley Basketball School in Iowa. What was it like stepping into such like a high-level American camp as a UK coach? And what did you learn about the intensity, culture, and basically relationships that basically shaped your future approach now?
Yeah, for sure. So Snow Valley's got a special place in my heart. It's the first like international camp me coaching that I did. I was very fortunate to meet Don Showalter, head of youth at USA Basketball and coach development, and he opened my eyes up to all the possible opportunities there were for me in the future. And I was kindly invited to Snow Valley, and seeing the amount, it's basically 3-4 day camps, and they will be on court 6:15 a.m. and they'll go all the way through between 9 and 11 p.m. depending on when your game's scheduled in the evening. And it was quite intense the very first time I'd done it, and it's very traditional. It's done in the sense of skill work, but it's a great. I like to call it. It's a bit of a coach's retreat, I'd say, where you get to connect with over 100 plus coaches, between 200, depending on the camp, depends on the coach they have, about 200 to 300 players each time. All at this small D3 school, Wartburg, Waverley College. And yeah, it's a blast. It's an absolute blast. The amount I learned there and connected with and networked with a lot of people, it's great. And definitely players and parents definitely they highly rate it based on again, like the accountability that they have that Don holds with his coaching staff and with the players there. It's great.
So you talked about the Cleveland Cavaliers a little bit previously. You also volunteered with them in their youth program. So how did that experience at elite American programs help you grow professionally?
Sure, yeah. So I was very fortunate to spend 3 months. I just got out of college in the UK and I had some time. And I spent a good 3 months in Cleveland. And it was great. Like, obviously, the NBA youth camps, they're very much more, people might call it, coaches have called it babysitting. But to be around an NBA organization and see the day-to-day inner workings of their youth program was incredible. And seeing all different members of staff within the Cavs organization was great, and it was a great networking opportunity. That really opened my eyes up to actually how what's involved in an NBA organization. As much as I was doing a lot of the youth camps there for the 3 months, I got to go in the front office and kind of help out there and be a bit of the bagel boy and the coffee boy, and that really getting Kobe Allman a coffee and a bagel one morning and delivering that and seeing on that big whiteboard all different information that I probably shouldn't be seeing, and it was great. And it was very fortunate as well because it was their last year that LeBron, Kyrie, Kevin Love were there as a three, and it was during the finals when the Warriors had KD. And I think the Warriors won it in 4. But yeah, it was an incredible opportunity. Yeah, and that I think that reignited my goal to come to get out to the US and to try and push the boundary of see how far I can go, and just keep believing in that dream and just keep progressing and keep networking and keep learning and being an open mindset. to get me where I am right now. So yeah.
So you're currently at IMG Summer Camp down in Florida, IMG Academy.
Yeah.
So can you take me through like what the day-to-day is of your schedule right now?
Yeah, so it's a great. IMG is awesome in the sense of I believe it's the best prep school in the US, obviously, with the prestigious amount of accolades that they've had in the past and the amount of players they've had come out into the NBA as well. Obviously, going to D1's the majority of them, but then going into the NBA, I think it really highlights the level of IMG and what it's about. In terms of the scheduling, yeah, players are going through quite not necessarily rigorous, but they're going through a good sense of performance practices, 2 a day, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, where they're getting a great opportunity to build their fundamentals of the game, and for them to grow as people. They would also go through a film session a film session and also a classroom session where they were looking at all other aspects of the game, the stuff that's important that they might not necessarily be getting at their school that they're currently at, or college, etc., or prep school, etc. So it really builds a great fundamental for them to understand what it looks like the next level of the game and where they're going to progress in the future.
So later in August, you actually have a big opportunity coming up. You're going to be a coach at Team USA's Gold Camp. What is your role going to be at the camp, and how excited are you, basically?
Yeah, so I'm very fortunate. I get the opportunity to work with USA Basketball. I'm really looking forward to travel down to Pittsburgh and be one of the core coaches in the camp. So obviously expecting to lead some drills, etc. And hopefully deliver a great experience for young basketball players, and obviously trying to get into that national team progress and aspect. And also it's a great opportunity as well, because I know that there'll also be coaches there watching and picking up notes and taking drills away and learning at the same time. So very, very excited to be a part with USA Basketball. But yeah.
What is your mindset basically when dealing with such high level guys that are going to be at this camp?
I think it's just obviously one, making sure they have a great opportunity and a great focus to what they're doing. I believe that it doesn't matter the level. There should be an element of fun, and the players should be enjoying it and the love of the game. What I never want to be in a situation is that I've coached these players and they don't enjoy the game. They do it as more of a job or they don't really have that passion or love.
Right.
I think it's so important that we all have a love for the game, making sure then players still have that love for the game. So make sure there's an element of fun there for sure. And then obviously the big thing that obviously USA Basketball believe in is obviously the accountability element. Don Show obviously will be leading the camp, obviously, and he wants obviously the players to obviously have a great time and also progress as well, and they're learning at the same time. So obviously teaching hat's going to be on, obviously, over the performance side, and making sure that they're learning. They've come away learning more about the game and the opportunity that's in front of them.
Having fun, I actually think is like what a lot of athletes across like all levels, like it could be college, it could be the pros, it can even be high school.
Yeah.
It's like they kind of lose that, like some people kind of lose that like love for the game, and it's like think of it as just like, oh, work, like, oh man, I gotta go to the gym to get shots up. Oh, I gotta lift. Like, oh, I have practice later. Like you gotta to make it far in like anything you do in life, especially my mom always tells me, and like mentors as well, coaches, they always tell me you gotta always just take everything in stride, like the good and the bad, and like kind of just enjoy it all, because you have like a short little window when you're playing basketball. You know what I mean? The ball can stop bouncing any single time. And like it comes quicker as you get older. So the love for it, I really agree with you, is like the main thing. It has to be like the main thing.
It has to be. A quick example, like I was fortunate to be involved in a Jaylen Brown workout. And like there was an element of fun there as well. Like, and the way it made it fun for him was making it competitive, and that was making it competitive against the coach, for example. And I think that says it all. I think obviously, the higher you get and the older you understand, like part of having fun is competing.
Mhm.
And if you're not competing, then it kind of like takes that away a little bit. See, but making sure that definitely at the USA Gold Camp they'll be competing for sure. But yeah, agreed. I mean, it's all about enjoying the game and the love of the game, right?
Yeah, it's not even like, oh, I have to do this. It's more like I get to do this. You know what I mean? It's like I have
Yeah,
like another opportunity to go out there and compete against other guys. Because it's like once you're done playing college or pro, like what are you like really looking forward to? Like a men's league or like a lifetime
right.
YMCA run like
Yeah,
later
just
on?
pick
Like
up. Yeah,
yeah, so it's like these
exactly.
opportunities you got to like cherish them. I really agree. I really like believe that in my heart.
Sure. Yeah.
So you were a key figure in the London Lions Academy over there in England. So what was that
Yeah.
experience?
Yeah, obviously, just talking about it a little bit earlier on how we done it. It was great because obviously to go in more into it, we try to work with clubs in the UK and we tried to the best talent and get them involved in this opportunity because we had a big sponsor at the time and we were able to facilitate not normal opportunities in the sense of taking them out into Europe and getting them competing in Europe and against different clubs. And that really, again, was an eye opener because it was a sense of there was trying to teach these kids to put them on a pathway where they would eventually could become professional and become pro. So we're trying to follow that kind of that European model that Barcelona Real Madrid to an extent would be doing, but then obviously implement everything we did with Alex and transforming, which allowed us to really take it up another level. But yeah, it was really eye-opening opportunity for myself because I would say I was a very different coach at the time prior to that, and really understanding the game a lot more and the intent, and definitely, unfortunately, it all finished due to funding and sponsorship of what happened. But it really, for the season that we had, it really I think opened a lot of young people's eyes to what basketball, what can be and how it can progress forward and how they could potentially progress forward into that. And giving them opportunity where we're talking about more life stuff as well, not just also what's on the court, but obviously what we go like how everyone's in a different scenario and different predicament and how they can really achieve what they want to achieve by different pathways and also discovering there are other pathways rather than just playing the game as well, and how these skills they learn with us they can use outside of that. They can use that at school, they can use that at a potential job, or they could use that at a work experience because a lot of the under-16s would go to different jobs to try and get work experience at that age in the UK, and how they were picking up these skills and obviously they're using it, but then day-to-day life. And that was the other really important thing with that. And that was the great thing about it. So, yeah.
So you coached pro women with the Essex Rebels. What
Yeah.
How did you basically balance development with winning at the pro level?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's very different when pro versus junior is so different because obviously within the pro setting, you obviously got objectives that you got to meet and hit criteria of. And with that, obviously scheduling within that, me and Coach Sadler, we would have, we'd had meetings, regular player meetings to make sure players are on topic and on site and they understand what we're trying to achieve and what their role is within the team. Obviously, they were conditioning 2 to 3 times a week, along with individual workouts about 2 to 3 times a week. And obviously, within our setting, we only managed to get 2 to 3 team practices a week with the travel schedule that we had as well. And that really tried to create the right environment for the caliber of player that was in front of us. Now, I might not necessarily meet every kind of player that we had, and it was really trying to identify what each of these players need and how we can best do that and what was going to be best with the resources that we had. Because obviously the resources are such a big thing as well, because within the UK, each club, university is different and they would all provide different resources within the framework they had, which is sad in a way that it's not all investment and money coming in. So me and Coach Sadler, obviously, we try to make the best of it. But one of the best things that we always do, we'd always meet every day and we'd talk basketball and we'd always watch film and cut tape together. And we had another assistant as well, who was a great numbers guy, stats guy, Coach Khoorchand. He would obviously put all the stats together and put a report together for us so we understood what we were dealing with and we could try and strategize around that. And that, again, was another eye-opening opportunity for me to try and really understand what it is like to a degree to the next level of how they can progress forward as a coach as well.
So as a coach, you talked a little bit about player development, your philosophy earlier on this conversation. So back in the day, I know a lot of players like didn't have trainers, didn't have access to watching game film. They would just roll the ball out and play. So nowadays, since all these other kids have trainers, they have access to film, like high state-of-the-art gyms, strength coaches, all that. How do you encourage athletes to take ownership of their own development?
Yeah, so I tell you what, have you seen the interview with Steve Nash, LeBron,
Their
and
pod?
I think it's Luca? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I
yeah,
watched it.
yeah, and they talk, yeah. I mean, you can tell me what they're talking about, right? What do they talk about?
Man, they talked about getting in the gym. They talked about lifting a lot, like kind of taking ownership. Like
Yeah,
LeBron said, he would just like he didn't have a trainer back in the day. He was talking
right.
about. He said like, man, I just learned how to play off of hooping alone. I would go to the park. I'd go on runs. I'd play. Lucas said the same thing as well. He said a lot of kids like nowadays like kind of have it a little too good. I remember from that interview where it's like they're like, oh yeah, my trainer's just gonna be there. Like I can rely on that instead of going up and getting shots on my own. And Steve Nash testified to it as well.
Yeah, and I think we're missing that. Like, how many? I don't think you see a lot. I think kids still do it, and obviously I can't really speak for the US because I've not been here long and etc. But like in the UK, I don't think we have enough of that. I don't think we have enough kids going outside playing basketball, playing pickup, try different things out, try to
Yeah.
be creative as possible. Because I think that brings a sense of them understanding who they are as a player as well. Where I think sometimes maybe if we have these one-on-one trainers, we actually sometimes maybe limit the skill set of the player and their development, if that makes sense. So it's a big thing in the UK. Like you get a 6'2" under 14 kid walks in the gym, you're playing the post. That's it. You're playing
Yeah.
the big guy. You're going to trail. You're going to play the big. Well, you don't know when that kid's going to stop growing. Number one. So why not teach him an all-rounded skill set of how to play the game, and that will then help them pick up the player they're going to be in the future and the future them going on, rather than just limitizing what they're going to do. So yeah, I'm fully a believer on new ball pickup games, moving all kids playing outside, playing basketball, enjoying the game in different scenarios, in different weather conditions, in the snow, in the rain, in the wind, in hurricane season. No, not hurricane season in Florida, but etc. Because that's different environments create different opportunity for the players to develop. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, our coach sent us like this video like the other day in our team group chat, and it was talking a little bit about working out and stuff like that. He was talking about the guy was talking about it can't just come from your trainer, all this energy and talking about getting better. The desire can't come from your trainer. It has to come from you. You have to go on every workout saying like, I need to get better. I need to do this, giving 110% energy. It can't come from the trainer being like, oh, we're going to do this. And then you're just like trotting through it. You know what I mean? Because there's people out there that don't have that luxury, you know what I mean, of a trainer, money to pay. They go to the park on that
Right.
asphalt out there
Yeah.
and like just hoop all day. And like, it's like 90 degrees outside. No, I went to the park with my friend just now. There's no one out there. Like, you know what I mean? Like stuff like that. Like back in the day, you
Yeah.
didn't really see that.
Yeah, for sure, and it's I think it's the best message that LeBron could have put out there, and Luca and Steve Nash saying that, and I like to think young players are going to listen to LeBron for sure, obviously, because the role model that he is. Because I think us as coaches have a duty to try and not limitize players and really give them the opportunity to be as creative as possible, because one scenario of teaching them, like, I don't know, like a crossover through legs finish will only work on one scenario, if that makes sense. When the game is so complicated and so unpredictable. Why, as coaches, do we make it as predictable as possible? If that makes sense.
Got to teach those counters at the end of the day. Like, let's say I go baseline from like the wing. I'm driving baseline. Guy cuts me off. You need to have either like get into that post up so you can attack middle, or a quick move going middle
Right.
off of that. Like you said, the game
Right. And then,
is unpredictable.
but to add to that, it's like add defense in there. Make sure defense is doing that so they understand what the adjustment is, rather than a situation where they're doing it against the air and they've got this imaginary defender. Well, are they going to pick up the skills that way? Because does that happen in the game? Well, no, it's not relatable to the game because there's no right. So yeah, I hear you, Ashton.
On the defensive end as well, like you can't just like how there's like those closeout drills where it's like you got to run, close out, then backpedal, then close out to the wing.
Right.
You can't in a game. You're not always gonna close out hard. What if the guy isn't a shooter? You know what I mean? I'm gonna close out to drive and try and cut him off. If he's a shooter, I'm gonna run him off the line. You know what I mean? And then the help is gonna come step up or to give me a chance to get back in front of him to give a contest. So like
all those things, sliding's outdated. Like how often do we slide?
It's more like a crossover step and like a sprint to get back in front, right?
And the only way kids get better at that is by putting them in situations where it is one-on-one and they've got to do it, versus them do something traditional like defense, slap the floor, slide, sharp box. But yeah, so I hear you.
One thing what one of my old trainers used to make us do back in the day, like when he was like giving us all these fundamental skills and stuff like that, he would always make us play 3v3 because he was like, there's no way each of you can hide on the defensive end now. There's 3v3, it's an upbeat, fast-paced game. Like you gotta box your man. It's like mano a mano with you and your man. Like 5-on-5, I mean you can like hide on the offensive end, like you can go hide in the corner. Then that guy's just technically like a help defender in a way because he can just slide into the safety or kind of just like stunt and stay at his man. So it's like 3v3, I feel like really makes you think and makes you work more. I don't know if I'm
for sure, and it's no. I think you're spot on, and something you've just made me think of. At camp, we've been playing a lot of FIBA 3-on-3.
Yeah,
and that's really allowed players to because that speeds up the game of 3-on-3.
Get it out the net
at the same time. With the inbound pass out of the net or dribbling it out straight rather than this checkup business. Like we don't need to do that. Like it then creates advantages and opportunity for players to actually, you're right, to develop in a different way for sure. And that's spot on. Believer, big time.
That FIBA 3-on-3, you gotta like if it's like a quick pass out for a catch and shoot 3, that's when you actually have to use your defensive techniques that we just talked about. Close out, you cut them off the drive, then you got to be able to step in to help, then get back out to your other man if they reverse it the other way. So yeah, I totally agree with you on that note. So having coached in both the US and UK, what cultural adjustments did you have to make when moving between countries?
Sure. It's a good question. I think it's just understanding players' needs is a big one. And I think something that obviously Europe's in NBA for pros, obviously Europe's catching up. But something I've noticed even more, a lot of US youth players, they play multiple sports. And I think if you play multiple sports, you're going to pick up different skills. In terms of like how their body moves and how they can utilize how they can actually utilize themselves in moving per se, and knowing that obviously I think we're very much in a culture in the UK. A lot of it is just we're basketball only, basketball. Like me and my wife have just had a baby, and I've already said to her, I don't think they're going to play for a basketball team or a club or have workouts, not until they're a little older. Like I really want them to understand their body and how they can move. And by them playing soccer, then playing American football, then playing baseball, like having different skill sets and him understanding his movement, I think has a bigger impact on who's the is it Sophie Cunningham? Have you seen all the stuff about her recently? For the Indiana Fever?
Indiana Fever. I don't know
Yeah,
like
and
too much
she's
about her, to be honest with you. All I
so
know is
she's
that people
like
are saying she's good looking.
so the thing I'm on about is she was a black belt in karate when she was
Really?
like 12 years old, and she was a kicker for a high school American football team. So like obviously like someone like that's played all these different sports and understanding their body and their movement and how they move, and then well look at her, she's playing pro women's in the W for the Fever, and I think that really has really spoke to me a lot being out here. I've seen it and speaking to players at all different levels that they've not just had a career in basketball growing up, they've done all these different sports. Um, so yeah, that's been a huge difference, I'd say for sure.
I think we heard LeBron say that in that podcast interview as well with
As
Luca.
well, yeah, yeah, no, he did, yeah.
He was saying like how as a kid, like he never specialized in one sport. He played football, he played baseball. Luca and Steve Nash, they were like, since they're Steve Nash is Canadian, Luca is from Slovenia. He was like, we played
Soccer guy as
soccer.
well, isn't he? Yeah,
Yeah, like
yeah,
we
yeah,
played all
yeah.
these different sports and all those different hand-eye coordination, footwork, everything like kind of ties together when you find out the sport like you ultimately want to play in middle school and high school, etc.
Right. And again, when that by that doing that, it doesn't limit the athletes' uh, understanding of their body and creating movement, etc. So then it obviously allows them to be the players that they can be and reach the potential that they can have.
So looking ahead, do you see yourself more as a developer, a tactical X and O's coach, or someone who will lead at like the front of the bench? How do you define what kind of coach you ultimately want to be in your career?
Sure, I'm really big on. Um, I like the stuff away from the court more, as in the how am I bringing a group of people together, and how am I going to utilize what they can do to the best of their ability. So obviously the culture, that I'd say that's the real thing I really enjoy the most. I enjoy trying to help people get the most out of that. Um, it, and I think the only reason why I've come to that conclusion is just from the growth of understanding the game from a very well trying to at a very young age, and then developing and feeling like I may have had a setback a little bit when actually it wasn't. It was my biggest growing point of development. I think that's one of the things that will always stick with me the most is how that. And then I think the game is changing, and I think we as coaches have a responsibility to make sure we change with the game and with players' development. Because obviously players are better. Obviously, we're seeing stuff that you were never seen in the 70s or the 60s in the NBA, and what they're doing that versus what they're able to do now. And I think it's so important that we, as coaches, develop along with the players as much, having that kind of growth mindset of developing young talent. And we only do that by being long life learners. And I think you can only do that by like hanging up the ego per se, and and really be open to development and understand yourself of what your strengths and weaknesses are as a coach, because it's only going to pay off to the players.
So you've been transparent about your long-term goal of coaching. So when you look into the future, what are your future aspirations?
Yeah, so obviously I've had a real big jump recently. Obviously, being able to move to the States and have the opportunity to work where I am. So obviously, this is for me. Uh, obviously, life gets in the way. Very fortunate to have just had a little boy with my incredible wife, who's the most supportive part of my coaching journey, I would say, to get where I've got to. But the goal is to continue to grow and develop and find network and hopefully possibly get into college one day, and then not if that succeed with that, and then the NBA or the other way around or within the G League. Like that is the end goal, is to be a high caliber organization with that align kind of with the same like morals and what they're after in terms of basketball and using triggers and sets and principles of play and having that same kind of mindset, because I think the game's going more that direction even more now, and that's what I want to be a part of that generation of the game, and I think that's the really big thing for that. And yeah, so.
Well, Coach Twigg, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I wish you the best of luck with your summer and your career going forward, sir.
Thank you so much, Ashton. I really appreciate the time. If it's okay, I'd love to share my email and my phone number if anyone would like to reach out. I'm always open to talking basketball with anyone and continue to learn. Would that be okay?
Yeah, of course. No problem. Go for it.
Sure. So my phone number is 941-274-9828. And my email is coachtwigg, TWIGG95 @gmail.com. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Gen Z Hoops. Make sure to follow, like, and subscribe on Instagram, LinkedIn, and all major social media platforms at Gen Z Hoops. You can tune in and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and every other podcast platform on the planet. Get ready for the next episode.